Peter Churchman. Thanks to Texas Green Rush and the Hemp and Garden Show for having me out. I really appreciate it, and I'll try not to be too long-winded. They say you're supposed to start these with a joke. My political joke, my go-to joke, is what is the problem with politicians? They get elected. I am a libertarian. I'm running for the 17th U.S. Congressional District of the great state of Texas. That is a fancy way of saying I want to be the congressman for 10 counties in central Texas that include Waco, College Station, Pflugerville, and parts of Austin. My campaign slogan is "It's time for a change," because I believe the hyper-partisan atmosphere we have in Washington is not good for our country, and we are not going forward. This is my website, churchmanfortexas.com. I try to be entertaining on my blog. It's called Churchman's Blog. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I fail, but I hope you go and look at it. This is my Facebook, my email, and my phone number. Feel free to contact me at any time. I'm available. Today's subject, drugs. I assume, since everybody is at the Hemp and Garden Show, that you're not big fans of the drug war. Neither am I. I don't have anything good to say about it. This is the light green line, it's kind of fuzzy, I'm sorry, is the actual rate from 1992 to 2016 of violent crimes. The darker green line is the public's percentage of how many crimes are being committed. The next slide shows the prison population in the U.S. It's a little fuzzy. Right here, this low point is 1972. That is when the Drug Enforcement Agency was created. Is anyone a fan of the DA in this room? Boo, DEA. We have had about a tenfold increase. I think this is 2013. Almost tenfold in our prison population since the DEA was created. That is not the only reason our prison population has grown so far, but it is a large part of it. This is the racial bias of our prison population per 100,000 citizens. This is black people. This is Latino people. This is white people. It is just, when people talk about systemic racism, the large part of that is because of the drug war. This is a sign. This says 10.5% of people that are black and 9.5% of people that are white in the last month have tried illicit drugs. It is a survey, it is not a factual rate, but you will notice that blacks and white use drugs at about the same rate. However, this column over here is the number of black people that have been arrested for illicit drugs. This is the number of white people. That is a major problem of the drug war. So why do we have drug law? We started out around 1900. They made law that fined physicians from prescribing marijuana and cocaine to their patients. They tried that tactic for a while. They tried other tactics throughout the world. They had the interdiction of drugs in Mexico law. In 1971, President Richard Nixon declared the war on drugs. In 1973, he created the DEA, and we've had problems ever since. Richard Cohen, founder of NORML, came up with the ironclad law of prohibition. What it says is the more federal law or state law or city law that you have on drugs, the harder and more pure the drugs will become. It has been true, drugs are more prevalent in America today than they have ever been. They're often more powerful and they are purer. Prohibition just doesn't work. It didn't work when we tried to prohibit alcohol. It doesn't work when we try to prohibit drugs. This is the Texas Controlled Substance Act, and you can't read any of that. What I'm going to tell you it says, we have this group up here, which is for illicit drugs of all kinds, and then they made a special marijuana law. The Texas Constitution is confusing at best. We have over 500 amendments to the Texas Constitution, and our drug laws make no sense in Texas. If you are caught with cocaine, a small amount, you can be fined up to $4,000 and have a year in prison. However, if it's marijuana, I believe it's $10,000 and only 180 days. So you have to pay more for marijuana, but you're in longer for meth. If you have a large amount, you can get life in prison in Texas for having a large amount of marijuana, which I don't know why that is. But you can only be fined $50,000. If you have a large amount of other drugs, you can be fined $250,000, but you can only get up to a maximum sentence of 99 years. So what should we do about it? What's the solution? That's what everybody wants, right? Well, we've got to look at the data of what we have done, and we have to ask, are we winning the war on drugs? I think that answer is a firm no. Has anyone in this room ever bought any type of drugs of any sort? Has anyone bought drugs? You can admit it. So the war on drugs, it's almost 50 years old. There's a high monetary cost. We spent $29 billion on the DEA last year. We spent a bunch more on the DEA, on our prison population, housing inmates and whatnot. That came up to about $50 billion. It's been that way for about the last decade, and we are $20 trillion in debt. Also, our military is in foreign countries, enforcing our drug law, and we are giving these foreign countries foreign aid to also, in part, force our drug laws in their country. That cost is harder to quantify because of a number of reasons, but it's estimated the war on drugs costs over $100 billion a year. Once again, America has a debt problem or a spending problem. The drug war, it has caused systemic racism. Decades of people have grown up in single-parent households because of the drug war. Back in the 80s, we had a cocaine problem, or at least we were told we had a cocaine problem, and we locked up mainly black people, poor black people, for using cocaine. Those families have generationally gone through a cycle of poverty, growing up in single-parent households. That is one of the reasons the drug war is immoral. Even if we were winning it, it'd still be immoral, and we are losing it. The loss of freedom, the needless death, the gang violence, they all go hand in hand. A main source of income from gangs is drugs. If drugs were legalized, they would not have that source of income anymore. It would stop a lot of the needless death. And if drugs were legalized, we wouldn't lock people in a cage for putting a plant in your body. In that cage, it is overcrowded. Our prisons we have gone to a private prison system. This prison system rewards the operators of that prison for keeping prisoners in it longer. It is not focused on rehabilitation, it is focused on profit. And it's a reason our prison system is immoral, but as a part of that is the drug war. What else do we have to do? Well, so I've gone over the monetary cost, I've gone over the societal cost. One of the things the drug war has brought, it has brought about Black Lives Matter. It has driven a wedge in between our policing community and our actual community, because every time someone gets pulled over, they are immediately suspect of having some sort of illicit substance. It doesn't make us safer, it does the opposite, because people are more and more not trusting the police officers. I know when I see a police officer, I don't feel served and protected. I feel intimidated. Legalizing marijuana is a good, practical first step into ending the drug war. It's not the only step we need to take, but it is a good first step. I'm glad Republicans and Democrats are coming around to that. Since 1972, when John Hospers, a gay man, was running as our first libertarian presidential candidate, the libertarians have always believed that marijuana should be legalized along with other drugs, because we believe we own our bodies and we can put into them what we want. We have a huge problem in other countries because of our drug laws. The cartels have become very violent south of our border. If they were in America, they would be labeled domestic terrorists. If we ended the drug war and legalized drugs, they would be seen as pillars of industry and exporters and job creators. Another good reason to end the war on drugs, because it would help us and other countries. Go back one slide. So what should we do? We should also look at what other countries have done. Holland has drug laws, but they have no criminal penalties. Every time they catch someone with drugs for whatever reason, they treat it as a medical issue and not a criminal issue. Drug use in Holland has declined, and it has worked very well for Holland. Other countries have completely abandoned drug laws. They have also seen a decline in drug use. America should look to doing that. We need to unschedule. Marijuana is a Schedule I drug. That means it has no medical benefits. That is what Schedule I is. As you have seen from the previous speakers, that is not true. We need to deschedule it so it is uncriminalized at the federal level, and let states like California and someday soon, I hope, Texas, decide what to do about drugs. There is no constitutional basis for the drug law. When we wanted to prohibit alcohol, we had the 18th Amendment. That is the Prohibition Amendment. Later we had the 21st Amendment that repealed the 18th Amendment. It is the only amendment in our Constitution that repeals anything. That was before 1930 when we expanded the implied federal powers. That there is a lot of disagreement if the federal government has any implied federal powers. I don't believe it does. Nevertheless, we should have to have an amendment to outlaw drugs in the first place, based upon what we did with alcohol. Ironically, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3 is the Commerce Clause. If drugs were legalized between the many states and foreign nations, the federal government would have a full constitutional basis to regulate them. Because they are illegal, there is no constitutional basis for it. I believe it's all legal. I'm going to work to change it. And that's pretty much my presentation. This is my contact information. I hope everybody contacts me. I especially hope you go to my Facebook page. Does anyone have any questions? I couldn't have explained it that well. Someone's got to have a question.
I've got to go. Go ahead.
Can you tell us more about how Holland does it?
What Holland does, they had a problem similar to America. They had a criminal problem. Get caught with drugs, you go to jail, and it's expensive. And when you go to jail for drugs, that doesn't help you after you get out of jail. In Holland, it's a lot like it is in America. If you go to jail for drugs, your life, I don't want to say it's ruined, but it's definitely a hurdle after you get out. What they have done is all of the drug problems in Holland are treated as medical issues. They will get you help with addiction. They will send you to a center. They do a very progressive type treatment of drugs. I think it's a very good system, especially when we look at what we did with cocaine. We treated it as a criminal issue instead of what we're doing with the opioid addiction. To a certain extent, we are treating it as a medical issue, and that's what it is. It's addiction. It is not a crime in and of itself to put something in your body. There was another question. Hans.
Yeah, so the question is, with changing marijuana laws, what's your plan for where to put that money? What do you want to do with the budget? Or,
I'm a libertarian. I hate taxes.
So free school for all?
I wasn't finished yet. We can look at what Colorado has done with their taxation of marijuana. Education is a state and local issue. That money has gone to schools. It has gone to other things. It is a sales tax, which I believe is the least regressive of the taxes. I really hate property tax. That's like way up here. I don't want to pay it at all. And then, you know, I kind of hate income tax. It's not good either. And then, you know, there's like some fees you have to pay to do something. But sales tax is the least tax I hate. I'm not going to say I like it, but I hate it the least because you have a choice to pay it. If we legalize marijuana and you don't want to pay marijuana tax, you don't have to buy it. That is your choice. That money is needed in Texas. In 2008, Texas spent about 50% of the budget for schools. The federal government spent 5%. And the property taxes paid the less, property taxes that I hate the most. Texas has reduced that to 38%. Property taxes have gone up. Federal government still has 5%. They don't have any money to pay anymore. So you brought up a good point. If we had legalized marijuana in Texas, there would be another revenue source for schools if we chose to do it that way. And our schools do need money. There is a huge problem in Texas with funding in education. A lot of that funding comes because we are subject to the federal government, and we are saddled with high stakes testing, and the federal government does not pay for that. So something needs to be done soon. 3 schools in my district are subject to closing right now. And these are schools in small towns. It's not like you can go to the next school over. You're talking about going to the next town, or maybe 2 towns away to go to school. So we have a funding issue. Anyone else? Ask me questions about education. I have an unpopular opinion of it, but sometimes people like to listen to it. All right? I don't think we should get rid of testing per se. High stakes testing, standardized testing, it has not shown to be beneficial in education. It is shown to be quite the opposite. And when I have talked to teachers, the #1 thing they talk about is their compensation package. Whether they are teaching or whether they are retired. If they are retired, they are more upset with their compensation package. Because of the windfall resolution, you can't draw Social Security if you are a retired Texas teacher. We should repeal that, because if you paid into Social Security, that is your money, you should get it back. The third thing, or the second thing, that they talk about is high stakes testing. They don't like it. It disrupts the classroom. We would have a better educated workforce if we did not have high stakes testing.
How do you feel about school immunizations and that the kids have to be in a seat a certain amount of days, or have a physician's note?
If they have a note from a physician, if a doctor says this child cannot be immunized, I'm not a doctor, I can't overrule that. I don't mind schools requiring immunization. I do like school choice, because if you don't want to immunize your kids, you can homeschool them. School choice is wonderful in Texas. A lot of the kids that are homeschooled, there is a bad perception about it. They have a lot of socialization now with groups and different things, and they generally do better in college with homeschool. So more choices is better.
What about the mandated days the child has to be in the seat, or the parent has penalties for that? So say if you have a disabled child and they're missing too many school days, at the end of that school session, you get taken to court as though you were a bad parent while you were just parenting at home, providing for your child or caring for your child.
I'm not familiar with that subject. I am familiar with Child Protective Services. They can come in and take your kids away pretty much without a warrant, without any due process. They can do it immediately. Is that along the same lines as what you're asking?
No, this is Austin Independent School District. If your child is not in the seat so many days out of the year in attendance, then they call you in court. Exactly. They get their funding by attendance.
Well, what they are trying to do is have a governmental solution to a governmental problem. They do get funded based on attendance. That is state law. Sometimes it is also city law. So we have a government problem that says you have to go to school, or you can be homeschooled. There are other options, but it is a governmental solution to educating our workforce that forces people to do things that they either can't or don't want to. I'm a libertarian. I am always for less government. Anything else? Anything else? Ask me about guns. I have unpopular positions on that too. Anything else? Love it. I would never do it. I think it makes you a target. However, it is a person's right. I would not make someone not open carry.
So it's my opinion that the ATF is an unconstitutional agency to begin with. However, marijuana consumers, even if you see cannabis legally under state law, still have to indicate that on the ATF form to get a gun. Tell me about what you do to reform that aspect of it, what the ATF can hire you.
It is not in the enumerated powers of the Constitution. Because of the Commerce Clause, when you talk about these implied federal powers, it is a mix of the necessary and proper clause, the welfare clause, and the Commerce Clause. If you sold a gun across state lines, it would be subject to the Commerce Clause, but the ATF per se is not a constitutional organization. It is not in the express powers. The federal government can regulate gun sales, however. I don't think marijuana should be involved in that. Anything else, anything else, anything else? How much time do I have left? Thank y'all. Go to my Facebook page. At the top of your Facebook page, there is a magnifying glass. Type in @electpeterchurchman. I need more likes and follows on that. Thank y'all.
Did very well.
Thanks.
Give it up for Peter Church.